Welcome to Candidate Interviews Uncut by the Snoqualmie Regional Chamber of Commerce. I am Rob Watton, and I have the privilege of interviewing 3 candidates for Position 5 of the Snoqualmie City Council. With me is Tanya Lavoy, a legislative assistant in the Washington State Senate. The candidates have been gracious in accepting the invitation to this interview without a lot of advance notice. They've been made privy of the questions just moments before they appear here. They're being allowed 2 minutes to respond to each of the questions. So first off, Tanya, let's start with a little bit about yourself.
I'm Tanya Lavoy, and I'm running for Snoqualmie City Council, position number 5, as part of a new generation of leadership for Snoqualmie. I've lived in Snoqualmie for over 8 years now with my husband, my child, and our animals. And I was raised in a multi-generational household by 2 strong women, and I'm a collaborative problem solver and proven public servant. As a legislative staffer and former community organizer, I have experience in bringing people together and listening, and that's the spirit that I would bring to the Snoqualmie City Council. I also would bring my policy knowledge that I've learned to bring better policy outcomes for Snoqualmie. You know, if elected, I'd really like to see us working with our regional partners on housing affordability, working to promote safer walking and biking, and preserving our open spaces. And I would love to earn your vote for this position. Snoqualmie is the place where I've chosen to raise my family and plan to live here for decades to come. And I'm really committed to making sure that it is a safe and welcoming place to live and work and raise a family. And that's, my vision for Snoqualmie. And I hope that, you share in that too, and would honor me with your vote.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanya. The next question. The city's workforce largely consists of non-residents, of non-local residents. Should this be a cause for concern? And if so, what measures would you propose to address this issue?
That's a great question. So it's not necessarily a concern, except for, if there's positions that we would like to be hiring locals for, and there's a number of reasons why we can't, right? So housing affordability comes to mind. If there's people that would like to live in Snoqualmie and they, can't afford the rent or to buy a house here, then that is something that we need to address. And we already know that there's a housing affordability problem, not just in Snoqualmie and the Snoqualmie Valley, but really statewide. And so I think it's more of a question of not just are they, non-local residents, but are they people that want to be residents here? I think another potential workforce challenge is access to reliable, affordable childcare. And that is something that I know is kind of top of mind for a lot of our elected officials. At the local level, we could be looking at our permitting to see how quickly it is for, new daycares to be able to open up. I have an experience where I'm literally waiting for a daycare to be able to be opened to have childcare for my own son. So that's kind of just as an anecdotal, even though it feels like we might have a lot of childcare in the area, it's not enough when we have so many young families that we have here. And that's a challenge for parents that want to be able to, enter the workforce, be it full-time, not just part-time, or work at all in the area. And that, might be folks that want to work locally. So I think that's a couple of things that brings to mind.
Very good. The next question, Tanya, King County is facing a $100 million budget deficit in the 2025 biennium. That may have an impact on public transportation and the funds for the independently operated Snoqualmie Valley Transportation, which serves rural King County. How will you work to preserve or even increase funding for public transportation?
So, one of the biggest things is for Snoqualmie residents to be loud about our needs. And, as an elected official, I would love to be a channel for that. I already have developed strong relationships with our local council member, Sarah Perry. And I know that she is very open to hearing from residents. Now, we're up against a lot of different competing interests for that budget dollars. The county has already sent out at least one survey trying to figure out where county residents want to have that money go. And I don't know how well Snoqualmie turned out for that. Transportation is a huge issue because we already don't have access to the same level of service as a lot of other places on the east side, which again affects the ability for the workforce, for people to avoid having long commutes, especially to have to commute in your car, which is an issue for a climate change. So I think that is part of how we can sell it to the county. And we've been loud about things before, right? We got a bus stop on the Ridge, a covered bus stop when we were, ahead of schedule for getting that because folks were diligent about asking for our needs. And, if we don't present those to the county, they're not going to know that we need it. And so part of that is having council members with not just those relationships, but with political savvy to know how things actually get done and when we need to start asking. Because when you start seeing draft numbers for budgets, it's already too late to get yourself in there if you're not. So just a few things.
Very good point. Tanya, question 4. The Chamber works to promote economic development from job creation to tourism. How can the city work to make this a favorable place for businesses while balancing the needs of our residents?
So first, I think we need to recognize that a number of our business owners are also residents. So not forgetting about that portion of it. I think one of the important aspects is our tourism, right, which obviously are very important to our city, which was affected considerably by the pandemic. And while we're recovering, that's still something to consider. Our need to make sure that when we have folks coming in to visit the falls or the Thomas Train Day, that they're not just visiting those sites and immediately leaving, that they're, actually spending more time and dollars in our city and patronizing our local businesses. And so part of that is, addressing some of those additional needs. So it is not an adversarial relationship. So noting that we're going to have influx of traffic and the congestion that might arise with special events. Looking at ways that we can be more collaborative with that, and hearing from our businesses so that it's maybe things like shuttles to highlight some of our other destinations and businesses and restaurants in Snoqualmie, which helps to alleviate some of our residents' concerns. So folks aren't just, I'm going to stay home or, avoid the city on these big events because I can't get around, but that they're excited to show folks our city. The other thing we touched on earlier is some of those workforce challenges and, making it so that our employees that want to work here are able to be residents of Snoqualmie. And it's not just an either or, and doing what we can to foster a strong business climate.
Thank you. Tanya Lavoy, on behalf of the Snow Valley Regional Chamber of Commerce, thank you for taking time for this interview. We have one final question for you. Why do you think you are the best choice for filling position 5 on the Snoqualmie City Council?
So once again, I am Tanya Lavoy, and I'm running for Snoqualmie City Council, position number 5. I am the only candidate with actual policy experience. I've seen how not just state legislation and budgets are made, but also how that trickles down into local code. And we have some really big decisions to make, especially when it comes to land use and zoning, which are critical to housing affordability in the future. And I've also built relationships with key stakeholders and state and local officials. I've been endorsed by our state and local leaders like Snoqualmie City Council member Joe Johnson, King County Council member Sarah Perry, State Representative Bill Ramos, because they recognize my effectiveness as a potential leader on our city council. I've also been endorsed by a nonpartisan organization, the National Women's Political Caucus. I am somebody who is going to, do my homework and ask the right questions to be able to make informed decisions. And think that's a critical skill that I've learned with my master's in public administration, where I studied local governance and finance along with, public policy. I know that I don't know everything, but I know the right questions to ask, not just of staff, but of the public. I've worked in constituent relations and know that hearing from our residents is just as important to know what you want and to be a conduit for your voice as we make decisions on the council, and I continue to be open to that. I'm somebody who understands how government can work, and even sometimes when it's not working, how to improve it, and really going in eyes wide open to the council to build the best future for Snoqualmie.
Thank you, Tanya. For the Snow Valley Regional Chamber of Commerce, I'm Rob Watton. Remember, the primary ballots are due by 8 p.m. on Tuesday, August 1st. From the Snow Valley Regional Chamber of Commerce, thank you for tuning in. We ask that you cast your ballot in this primary. We believe it is incredibly important to have your say and help the city of Snoqualmie find the right person to fill position 5.